aid stations in the county as well as the city of Brantford. Last few years when it's been our time to host the mutual aid meeting, we've had to go to Kingsville Community Center. This was not only to do with the mold issues, but the fact that we weren't guaranteed to have a water supply to flush toilets or to flush urinals. And in fact, we had a guest speaker about 3 weeks ago at our hall, and we didn't have water to flush toilets or urinals, and to be honest, it was embarrassing. Now, and I'll make a little joke a little bit, but it's a little serious. When we invite somebody in to speak, it's BYOT, bring your own toilet, or the nearest tree, whatever works for you. A few years ago, we had a major vehicle accident out not too far from our hall. Victim services was required to deal with the people that were involved. They needed somewhere to have a meeting as well as to use the washroom facilities. After the meeting, the question came up. They said, "Is this really your fire hall?" It was not a proud moment for Onondaga nor the county of Brant. The only good thing, we did have running water that night, so they were able to flush the toilets. There's some possible electrical issues with the existing structure. Last year we had a baseboard heater that arced and sparked. Fortunately, we were there to shut the power down and it was replaced. We've had issues with the lights going off and having to go down and change fuses out or tighten fuses to make the lights work properly. A few other points just to finish up with in regards to building a new fire hall. Presently, we cannot wash our trucks, especially in the winter. We'll take them to the city of Brantford to a car wash, or we'll take them to our farm where we have equipment that we can wash equipment up with. After a heavy rainfall or spring thaw, there is always water in the basement, which is probably to do with the mold issues as well. If we have running water, it's not drinkable. Rodents are an ongoing problem with damaging equipment. We had an issue about 3 years ago. One of our firefighters was getting ready to tend to a chimney fire, put his helmet on. 2 mice ran down his face, down his chest, onto the floor. They had started to build a nest in his helmet. Presently, we do not have internet service. For many years, we've used our own personal computers and internet service to write reports for the County of Brant and to prepare for training. I believe every other hall does have internet service. And finally, the budget to upgrade and renovate the existing derelict structure is cost prohibitive and frankly does not make sense. I leave you with a few notes to maybe consider when you do build the new fire hall. When you tear down the old school, incorporate something from the old structure into the new fire hall or the new service building, office. For instance, there's some oak doors as you walk in. They can maybe be refinished and incorporate somehow. That's as one example. You could use some of the old bricks to make a monument to commemorate the old school, when it was built and what it's been used for over the years. You could use some of the old bricks to make a planter box in front of a new service office or a planter around a new flagpole. Or you could offer a picture of the building as it stands or a brick to anyone that wants a memento of the old building. Just to conclude, more people equals more calls, and our call volume is increasing. We have more pressure on us for training and require proper facilities to be prepared in a way the public expects. We realize and recognize the cost of building a new fire hall is significant, but it's time to build to meet the needs of our community. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to this.
Questions by members of council? Councilor Simon?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the presenter, I understand the building is in bad shape. There's no doubt about it.
Yes.
But you did say about the internet not working. Will it be working in a new building there?
Yes.
It will.
There's a tower not too far from the hall, but we do not have internet service there unless somebody uses their phone to bring it in and use their personal time.
Okay, thank you.
I think there's internet service in the office, but there's a password which we haven't been given to use.
But you could have had that password. I
We've
would
asked
assume.
for a password, but never been given to us.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Councilor Cardy?
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. And I apologize, I don't know the answer to this. How many vehicles do you have at the station there now?
There's 3 trucks and a boat, so there's 4 units.
Thank you.
4. Thank you. Anyone else have a question? If not, thanks, Barry, for your presentation, and we acknowledge your support, people, including the chief, the County of Brant Fire Chief. Thank you. The next is, as listed, Ann Geary, submitting a request for a 3-way stop at the intersection of Grand River Street North and Mechanic Street here in Paris. Welcome. Please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you.
Good evening, can everyone hear me here? Okay, good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. My name is Ann Geary. My husband Roy and I are property owners and merchants in downtown Paris. We have Green Heron Books, which is right between John Hall Linens and the TD Bank. I'm here to make a presentation because Don Millay, who has been working for us repairing some water damage on our building, was nearly run over by a car right on the main street of Paris. This incident spurred me to write a letter to members of the county requesting the 3-way stop be put in at the intersection of Mechanic Street and Grand River Street North. His nearly getting hit was like the last straw for me. I said to myself, enough is enough. This has been going on for years. Something has to be done. As merchants, we see the same thing happening all the time at that corner. Because it's happening so often, the chance of someone getting seriously hurt or dying is really great. I'm assuming that all of you have had a chance to read my letter, so I'm not going to read that again. My letter went to the Public Works Committee, and it was suggested that this issue be referred to the Downtown Paris Master Plan process. I guess I'm here tonight to try and convince you not to do that. I do want to read parts of 2 letters that were not presented at that committee meeting. The first one is from Jim Nelson, who is the detachment commander of the OPP here in Paris. And this was written to Paul Emerson, and it was CC'd to me. I'm not sure if any traffic studies have been completed in reference to this request by Ann Geary. However, I will say from a from a policing and public safety perspective that she makes a very well thought out case in her attached letter. This is especially true now that Wincy Mills is up and running midweek to Saturday, as there is significantly more traffic on Mechanic than in past years. My own observation is that this is increasing. Based on this letter and our own experiences navigating on Grand River North and Mechanic and downtown generally in our cruisers, the OPP would support this request and encourage it to be considered further. Feel free to chat further at the next PSB meeting if you'd like. Jim Nelson, Detachment Commander. The next letter is from the Paris PIA, and this is from Drew Skuse, and I won't read you all of this. It starts out, just Ann Geary made a presentation to the Paris Business Improvement Association at the monthly meeting held on Tuesday, March 13. Farther down the letter, after I gave the presentation, it says here, much animated discussion followed. Most members said that they have witnessed people nearly getting hit or know people who have been hit. That's meaning Drew, I mentioned the fact that I personally have been clipped in the arm by the mirror of a Dodge Neon at that intersection, and Michelle Rousseau, the co-chair of the BIA, said that her husband Patrick had been at that intersection when someone was hit severely. He stayed there while the person lay on the road, and they waited for the ambulance to arrive. The BIA voted unanimously to write a letter to Brant County Council in support of Ann's proposal, asking that the three-way stop be put in immediately and to not wait for the downtown master plan process to review the issues at some indefinite time later. As merchants in downtown Paris, we are on the front lines and watch the dangers of this corner every day. We feel strongly that this issue needs to be dealt with now. And like the OPP, we are in full support of the three-way stop at the corner of Mechanic Street and Grand River Street North in Paris. In my letter, I have outlined side effects or side benefits to having a three-way stop there. This is to businesses and tourism, but the real issue that's at stake here is safety. The problem that this intersection has is that it is a blind intersection in two directions. When you come down over the Nith River Bridge and come into Paris, you have to go around the Remax building, and you can't see, and then all of a sudden you're on top of people getting in and out of their parked cars or pedestrians crossing at the crosswalk. That's in one direction. When you were stopped on Mechanic Street trying to make a left turn onto Grand River Street North, again, it's blind. There's not enough advanced warning of the cars coming down over the Nith River Bridge, and they come quickly, so you can't see in that direction. And when they're coming up past in front of Tufts, there's parked cars there in front of the hardware store, and again, you can't see it, so you kind of have to dart out and hope for the best. So that's not a very good situation. And then if you put in pedestrians, it's really bad. Someone suggested that by having a three-way stop there, it would back traffic up over the Nith River Bridge. I think that's, to me, it feels like that's incorrect. I was instrumental with two other mothers at the time of putting in a four-way stop up on Silver Street and Market Street, right near Northward School, and it was a terrible corner, very dangerous. Sidewalk, kids pushing, shoving, whatever, and traffic just going really quickly. And when some of the factories, Paris Kitchen or Wabco would let out, everything was backed up. You couldn't make a turn. Paris Fair time was horrendous. You couldn't turn there at all. As soon as the four-way stop went in, everybody takes their turn, and the traffic actually flows. So I really feel that right now, you can back up traffic by pedestrians going across Grand River Street, right at Mechanic there. You can back up traffic with stoplights. You can back up traffic with the second pedestrian crosswalk. There's all sorts of ways that traffic will actually get backed up. And so a three-way stop makes it go quickly because each person just takes their turn and it keeps on flowing. It was suggested also that a traffic light, a full traffic light might possibly be put there. I feel that won't solve the problem. Once you get a green light and you pull out, and if there are pedestrians crossing there or traffic backed up, then you could sit there with a green light and all of a sudden it turns red and you're sitting in the middle of the intersection. So I really feel strongly that the three-way stop allows everything to move all the time. There's also the suggestion about going into putting it towards the master plan. I worry about that because if the master plan is in process right now, it probably will take, I don't know, perhaps the rest of this year or whatever, if all of the things go well. There's all sorts of procedures that have to be in place. Council has to make presentations to the public, and then it has to go back for review, all sorts of things like that. So it's going to take time. If everything goes well and it could possibly be done by the end of the year, then, and budget is formed for that, then what you're facing is, right now, council usually has to have a 5-year plan that jobs are indicated, funds are allocated for the next 5 years. So unless you take something out of that 5-year plan, then this master plan is going to have to wait till after that years. So if we have this year to get the plan organized, then 5 years from now, that's 6 years, and then we're into the 7th year. And if the streets are all dug up and things are fixed and put down all in 1 year, and then you put down streets, and you put down sidewalks, and then you put up lamp posts, and then you put up signs at the end of that. So as far as I can figure out, that it would be at the earliest at the end of 7 years before you get some kind of an intersection, of a three-way stop at that intersection. I'm hoping that that's not the case, but that's the way it looks to me right now. And if things don't go well, and I understand that Burford is going to have some of their updating done in the meantime, then hopefully that goes well, but there could be delay after delay. So 7 years from now is a long time to wait to have accidents keep happening there, people getting hit or not getting hit. What I'd like to know is the cost of having stop signs. There is a stop sign right there on Mechanic Street right now. It would be a matter of putting another stop sign on Grand River on the southbound lane, a stop sign on the northbound lane, and a warning sign coming over the Nith River Bridge that there is a stop there. So it would be an additional 3 signs. And I'm wondering how you can balance the cost of 3 stop signs to the cost of someone's life or someone suing because they've been seriously injured. So I would really like to convince you to put this in sooner rather than later. Immediately is what I would like to see, just so that no more people get injured there, and it becomes a safe corner, and it's easy to make a left turn, and that's what I'd like to see. So I'm hoping I can convince you to do that. So thank you very much for listening to this. Thank you. Any questions or anything? All right, thank you. All right, thank you. It's a big concern. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, thank you for your presentation. Yeah, the downtown is, it's challenging at times, for sure, whether it be at a crosswalk, whether it be at a corner, and I totally understand where you're coming from, and I appreciate that. I'm trying to understand, though, if we were to put stop signs there, let's think of the northbound. Like when you're coming around, like where would you put it? I'm just trying to understand your thoughts as where you think it would be put, because it's got to be like somewhere out front of like Debbie's Basic Black, kind of in that area to line up with Mechanic Street.
Yes.
Is that enough when you're coming around the corner? Is it enough to be able to see it in time? Because it would have to be pretty much out onto the roadway in order to be able to see it. And if you're coming southbound, is your suggestion maybe to put it before the crosswalk or after the crosswalk? I'm just wondering your thoughts on that.
Ideally, I suppose, if you had something like a flashing red above it, but that costs more money. Yes, I would like to see it so that it does line up with Mechanic Street, and if it does have to be put out into the middle, so be it. But if you have warning signs coming down, and actually when I was talking to Jim Milson of the OPP, he made a suggestion that you could possibly put a flashing light on the Cenotaph side of the road so that as you're coming over the Nith River Bridge, you would see warning that something was coming. But I would definitely like to, yes, I don't see a problem that you could put them out there and still make it work.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Cardy?
Thank you, Your Worship, and first of all, I'd like to say thank you very much for the time and effort you've put into this. I know myself, living in the community my whole life, there has been a huge change in traffic flow in the
Yes.
main core of the county. The mayor was with me one day for pointing on the main crosswalk here, pushing the button. I started to walk across, and if it wasn't for the mayor telling me to look out last July, I may not be standing here today because somebody on their cell phone texting drove right through at full speed that main crosswalk downtown. So, you know, it doesn't matter if it's a crosswalk or a stop, we've got to be very cautious on what we do, because sometimes people don't look at either. And
That's right.
it's a big
There's-
issue.
There's a lot going on down there. And so you've got to be aware of everything.
Absolutely. And Counselor Pierce brings up a good point. Where do we put it? Do we put a stop coming up by the old Salvation Army building on the other side of the Nith River Bridge to
Yes.
warn people that there's a stop coming up? I don't know the answer. I know potentially giving it to Works to take a good look at and see what they could come up, because they have staff that do that kind of thing, that look after that and look into it to see what the best alternative is, might be a good idea. I agree with you. I don't know what the answer is.
Well, I think a warning sign definitely would help, just to know, because people do come too fast down over that Nith River Bridge, and then just whip around that corner, and then they're on top of everything. So it's dangerous. Yes.
Anyone else? Councillor Simons?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to presenter.
Councillor Powell.
Thank you so much for your presentation. It's a good one. Has gone to the Works Committee, and there is a recommendation in the report from the Works Committee. But we could always ask the Works Committee if they could look at it a little more at this present time and see what they can come up with. But I do remember bringing this up at the BIA, and I did suggest, or did say, that when the crosswalk signs get removed and replaced, they'll be going in with a regular stoplight, because these are obsolete now. They don't put them up anymore, so they will be a regular stoplight at that corner where the crosswalk is. So that will happen when this sign comes down, and the same in the middle of the crosswalk.
So is that when the sign comes down, or is that during the master plan?
I don't exactly know when that was. I would assume it's during the master plan, because we're going to be tearing up the streets and putting these new lights in, so I would imagine it'd be done all at once.
That's what concerns me, is that it's going to be a long time before that actually
I just want
happens.
to correct another item. I think I remember hear you say that it's probably going to be 7 years. I don't think it's going to be that long, and I don't know where that figure came from, because it was never, there was a 5-year term talked about, but I don't think it's going to be that long. We're going to have a presentation, a public presentation on the 11th of April regarding that. And we're starting into the public process already, so it won't be 5-7 years.
I just thought that county always had to have a 5-year budget already established, so that the 5 years, the next 5 years is already allotted.
Things can change very drastically and very
Okay.
fast if
Okay.
they want to. So, no, and I would
Okay.
really recommend that 5-year, 7-year figure gets sort of dismissed, because I don't think it's true.
Okay,
Okay? Thank you.
okay, thank you. I'm hoping
Councillor
sooner.
Powell?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the delegation, 2 things. The first one, I don't know if I heard you correctly, but summertime, we get a lot of tourists from out of town, especially it's been picking up the last 2 years. So they can be backed up to St. James Anglican Church. Now, would a 3-way stop move the traffic any quicker? I know when it's backed up, it's a lot safer, because you just can't go fast, you can't temporarily go anywhere. And the second one is cars on mechanic or trucks making that left turn to go north.
Yes.
Does that really happen very often?
Right now, it doesn't. You can actually see, I think I said in my letter, that you can see on Google Earth that the traffic pattern is that you turn right at that corner, because it is so difficult to make a left. It is so dangerous to make a left, because there's not enough advance warning in either direction of the traffic. So everybody I talk to says, oh yeah, I don't make a left turn there, I don't make a left turn there because I can't. It's just so difficult to do. I would like to see it so that you can go both ways around the main block of downtown Paris, of Grand River, Mechanic, Broadway, and William, to be able to go either direction easily. So it's only because you can't make it easily that people aren't doing it. But then we're getting all the problem with the J-turns into the parking spaces, because it's so difficult to make a left turn there. So, and yes, I think that a 3-way stop is going to make traffic flow more quickly, because everyone just takes turns. Right now, if you have someone coming down there and they want to make a left turn onto Mechanic, it's blocked up, as you say, back up to the church. You have to wait for all of that traffic coming from the southbound lane, coming from the north, to clear before you have the right-of-way to make a left there, because there's no stop. There's nothing to stop the traffic, so it can back it up right now. So I think that a three-way stop is going to facilitate that fast movement in all directions. It's you take your turn. You just take your turn, and everybody else is stopped so that it's safe. When you're taking your turn, everybody else is stopped, and you just do it, and it works. So I guess that's the one that I would like to see happen there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else wish to speak? No other questions? If not, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you for allowing me to do
It will
that.
be considered later
Okay.
this evening.
Okay, thank you very much.
The next on the list is Dr. John McDonald, community physician who works at the Willett Hospital. But before Dr. McDonald speaks, I'd allow the members, the volunteer firefighters, realizing the pressure they're under and being on duty, any that wish to leave may do so at this time. I don't know whether any wish to leave or not. Or following Dr. McDonald, perhaps. He's speaking on a very important subject, health care in Brant. So, Doctor, please proceed if you're ready. Yes, if you wish to go, it's fine. We'll give you another opportunity.
So thank you very much, Mayor Eddy, county councilors, municipal staff, constituents. And isn't it pretty exciting to be here and hear all these people talking about real things that matter to real people, your constituents, every single day? I think it's wonderful as we see so many areas and places where this can't happen. So thank you for allowing me to have a few words. Of course, I'm talking about health care. I'm talking about something that's so important that I've lived my life here. I was born and raised. But I've dedicated my life to the community care that we're having right now. I'm not alone, but my purpose 43 years ago when I came here was to leave this place a little happier, a little better supplied in resources and services over my lifetime. Well, that's not over yet, but it's getting closer. So I come to you reminding you all that we've been working for about a year and a half on a thing called a community health hub. And I'm sure you know a little bit because you all have something to think about tonight about your participation. But I wanted to understand, you would understand there's huge amounts of energy. There's a lot of planning and understanding. And this is a transformational moment for you, for us in the community, to bring your attention to support this endeavor. Many communities, small communities primarily, are understanding the importance of engaging with their citizens and with their providers, physicians, health teams, and others, to allow the continuance of providing services in the smaller areas which are not hospital-driven. You need to be reminded that the primary amount of health care is delivered in physicians and other primary care providers' offices, not in hospitals. This is where communities exist. This is the basis and foundation of healthy communities. And this is what I'm trying to be about. I'm talking about living well and a healthy community. And so this council can help us move this forward in a very strong way. We can be innovative. We can be an incubator for working together with the different elements of this system. Not a single physician, not a single nursing, not a single agency, but working together. And as you know, we are in need of a home. I've never heard about experienced homelessness before, and you know, I've been very lucky to live in a community where it's easy to get a house and buy a house and live in there. But when you start with something new, you don't always have a place to go to have a home. So I'm asking you to help us have a home in this community, and this community means St. George, it means Burford, it means Harley, it means Scotland, it means Paris, and it means on the other side towards Cambridge and Ayr. So it means many people. 13,000 patients are part of our family health team, and I realize there's 30 plus in the county. where we'd love to grow, but we can't grow any more than we have at this point in time until we have a better place to do it in. So we really believe that the home that we're going to have is a place where we can provide service, where people can meet, where we can have a conversation, just like you're having tonight, in a meaningful way with the individuals and agencies that are so important in committing to the health of your citizens. And seriously, it is clear in all the studies that I have read that currently exist on an ongoing basis, both locally in Ontario, nationally and internationally. It is the primary care system that promotes and is established that allows the communities to be healthy. It is about that system. It's not about the sickness system. It's about caring and helping people stay healthy. Living well is the decision you're going to help us do tonight, I hope. Because that's my goal, is to engage with you and engage with the community on an ongoing basis. And a very exciting initiative where we're going to be all together. We're not going to be scattered. We're going to be interested in the smaller communities. We're not going to be interested in centralizing in the biggest neighbor next door and the other cities on the other side of that. We're going to stay local because I know our community cares, and I know I care for our community, and I want to engage with you to be partners. So I think I've talked about the why, and I talked about the when now. I've talked about where. Well, I think that'll be up to you a bit later. I have my own ideas. But the most important thing is that it's a transformation moment. This is about us. This is about a decision we have to decide upon now, because we need somewhere to do this. We need somewhere to stabilize the physician numbers. We need somewhere for them to go. We need somewhere for the agencies to meet together. This community has many needs, and as you know, the province is not shy in putting more and more responsibilities on communities. It's not shy about putting responsibilities on community care providers. It's not shy about deciding what will win an election. But it is up to us to see through all that and make good decisions and legacies which will help our citizens over the longer term establish a better health for their community. So let's try to support living well in this method. Join with us. We've done a lot of work, and I'm sure you will see the brief, and the information appended will be clearly discussed. So I appreciate the time and talking to you this evening. Thank you. And don't forget, this is about the hub. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, Doctor. We'll see if there are questions of the doctor at this time. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to Dr. McDonald. Dr. McDonald, in 60 seconds or less, can you give me your vision of the ideal health hub for the community of Brant?
The ideal would be to have it existing in the next 6 months. It would be a place where some physicians, some other providers, nurses, nurse practitioners, some integration between a pharmacy, a gym, some other agencies which would support people working together. So a meeting place is really, as far as I can tell you right now. It would be things like, consider, should we have the opportunity for people meeting together to do a Meals on Wheels type approach if we are growing out of spaces? Should we talk about the real issue of social welfare that you have to deal with all the time? Because we do know that when I talk about health, I'm not talking about sickness care. I'm talking about staying well. I'm talking about the determinants of health associated with housing and food and the simple things that make all the difference in the world. So having those under one roof where we can interact is the magic juice which squeezes out the efficiencies and the costs out of the window. It squeezes into that room the energy and the solution finding that does people well. So we know that from other models and other communities. We know that's the magic juice. You can put anything in you want, but it's really about about looking after people, having some people where people can go, some people that where the needs, not their sickness needs, are looked after, and that their determinants are looked after if they need some help with their finances, if they need some help with their relationships. Yeah, that's what works together. So you need to have a big enough location and that you can have it there, but also you can feed it into where it needs to be, because it is a wrong philosophy to think it's one location. We need a location, but it's not just that location. It's about someplace to be, have as a home, but someplace to incubate and create the resources that need to be reaching out into the community for people to keep well. Thank you.
Councillor Gatward, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Dr. MacDonald. A number of years ago, there was a number of doctors who had thought about building a health hub or a family health team project up near the fire hall. Can you tell me why they decided not to do that?
I can tell you very specifically why they didn't do that. Because it was a developer that was primarily going to be doing it, and that developer had certain requirements fiscally and certain levels of liability which he wanted the physicians primarily and solely to assume. And that document contract said that really was something we really couldn't sign in any reasonable way. So that was where you have a situation which came to fray, because a private developer was the primary energy behind that. They wanted an unrealistic amount of liability assumed by 5 physicians at that time, and we just couldn't reasonably do that. We were advised that that was not okay. So we had to pull out, sorry.
Thank you. And how many physicians are there currently at the Willet?
So right now, the physicians that will be looking for a new home are 4. We do need at least 2 more locally to catch up to when I eventually sunset, and also the demand on people coming in, because we have to say no way too often still, because as you know, the population is going like this, and they don't have enough people. We are lucky enough to have a person in St. George and Eyre at this point, but right now we have 4. We have the need for 2 more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Simons.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Dr. MacDonald, thank you so much for your presentation. I've heard it before, and I'm sure I'm going to hear it again. My question is this: would you support a revenue-generated case such as blood services and X-ray or dialysis, or something to come into the hub to help with the revenue sources at the other end?
I think I got your question, and absolutely. This is not about, a pharmacy is welcome, a lab is welcome, an X-ray machine is and service is welcome. Of course, that's a critical component, and sorry if I didn't mention it. But absolutely, and there are non-publicly funded services right now that there's a lot of money being spent on non-publicly funded services. And maybe we can allow some of that to be coordinated and put together and make it more valuable. So I believe that it's automatically right now. I don't see health system as a solely publicly funded system. I see it as very strongly funded by people as well as the public.
Okay,
and that's why this investment would give us an opportunity to really bring some value into this situation. Thank you.
Any other member of council have a question? If not, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you again.
That completes the list of delegations for this evening. How do you wish to deal with them? Number 1, Councillor. That's who you are.
Mayor, I wonder if we could take delegation number 1.
Yes.
And move that report up to now with council's approval, with the firemen still in attendance here, and that would take care of the 3 halls that is on
Correct. Correct. So that's a motion.
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Councillor Cardy has his hand up already, or a while ago. So that's moved and seconded. Any speakers to that? None? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. So how do you wish to deal with those items being a response, actually, to the delegation's request, as you see it? Councillor Coleman? Pardon?
I would refer the community services report come right now while the gentlemen are in the ladies' room.
Correct. Now the question, that has been happened with the motion. It's before you. How does council wish to deal with that?
8A, Community Service Committee Report from March 5th, 2018 is moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Powell, that the Community Service Report be approved, noting there are 6 recommendations.
Yes, I think the motion covers one section only.
Covers them
The
all.
entire report you're bringing forward? Okay. Any questions of the presenter? None? Councillor Miller, please.
Just the, it's on the fire halls themselves, and I was hoping it would be in the report or somewhere. What's the breakdown of how they're being paid for? Now, I know we've got some set aside in the budget, and I'm sure some's coming from DC's, and how much are we debenturing?
If we could, Mr. Mayor, can we ask?
What is specifically the question you're asking?
How are we paying for it?
Well, we don't know what the amount is yet, do we?
Yeah.
Who are you asking to respond?
Mr. Bradley?
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, all 3 fire projects were brought forward in the 2016, or 17 and 2018 budgets. They are all funded by long-term debt.
Thank you. Any other member have a question? Councillor Chambers, please.
Just through you to the chairman or whoever wants to answer the question. Once this resolution is passed, what's the time frame? When can we expect the halls to be truck ready?
Mr. Bradley?
Through you, Your Worship, I'd answer the question. So we would, if these resolutions are passed, we will commence with design work. Some of it's already done. Committee saw some of the conceptual design. We would hope to be in the ground this fall with the idea that the halls, if they all proceed along concurrently, would be at least finished, and we would be commissioning late 2019 or into early 2020.
That answer your question? Yes. Any other questions? Councillor Simons?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there a possibility that the rest of the council members could see the design that you've chosen for these facilities at some time?
It's in the minutes.
You're addressing your question.
I'm asking.
It has to go to the chair.
Okay, through you, Mr. Chair.
Certainly, we'll get that. It was in
Could you-
the community service minutes, but we'll get it to you.
The designs?
I believe they were.
Okay.
We'll get it for you.
Okay, thank you. And before we approve, I've got another comment that I'd like to make before we approve the minutes, if I may.
You have a question, another question?
I do, it's a comment, if I may.
You wish to make a comment?
Okay, it's not concerning the fire halls, it's another item, if I may, within the community services report. Okay, and it's on page 146, and it's under consent items to be received. The termination of the lease agreement with Nautical Lands, and I've spoken with Leslie Head regarding this matter, and the euchre group that will no longer be playing there have found a home at Telfer Place. So I just wanted to let everybody know they found a new home, which is really good. Apparently they are Nautical is using the space more than what they anticipated, so they have removed them. So they found a new home though. Just wanted to bring that forward.
Any response to that?
Great news.
Councillor Gatward?
It's good news.
Thank you.
We like good news.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the chairman, the placement of the Scotland Fire Hall at 83 Simcoe Street, will it be placed in such a fashion on that new property that we could put a road through and build in behind a few homes, because there's a lot of land there?
I'm not sure that was considered. I know there is a right-of-way in there.
There is
Mr.
the
Chair,
sim-
will there not be a presentation on the fire location of the fire halls when that's determined? Information will come before council when it's determined.
And
For your consideration, change, approval, disapproval.
And I would hope that would be considered, to use the land to the fullest extent that we can. My other question, I'm happy to see Onondaga getting done. Does anyone know which hall will be shovel-ready and started first? Because we need to get going on this.
As was stated earlier, my understanding is they will all go in conjunction.
Right.
So they'll just have radials and they'll just dig at the same time.
Okay, and my last question, Mr. Mayor, the paramedics are being renamed under number 1 to the Brantford Paramedic Services. Was that whole name change discussed with our ambulance, and
It was presented by the
Presented by
manager.
them.
so they're in agreement?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Any other member of council? That complete the questioning. So the report, Community Services Committee reports before you with the recommendation. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. The report is approved. Thank you. We'll go to item B, Ann Gary, request for a three-way stop. Councillor Simons.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I've talked a lot tonight about this item and in particular, but I think Mrs. Geary has a great point when she said that she'd like to see it referred back to Works Committee again for another review of it to see what can happen at present. If anything, I don't know, but just to leave it until the huge plan gets developed is maybe a little bit long. So if we could ask staff if they could maybe, look at the site. And my fear of it all is that we could lose parking spots. That's my fear. And I don't know how we can get around that, but it could happen. So we need to know that. So if we could refer this back to the Works Department to see if they could just relook at it and come back with some kind of more detailed information. So that's what I'm recommending. Okay?
Is there a recommendation? Councillor Gatward, had you finished?
I just recommend that it goes to the Works Department for a more detailed look at it.
Want that written?
And Mr. Mayor, I would just say that at the last Public Works meeting, of course, we didn't have all the information, which the letter just came out the day before our Public Works meeting, the one letter, the date on it. So now that there's further information from various sources, perhaps it is a good idea to send it back to Public Works at our next meeting so we can discuss it now that we have additional information.
Well, we have a problem because there's a recommendation in Public Works Committee dealing with the matter.
And maybe we should remove that from the report.
Pardon?
Maybe we should remove it from the Public Works report.
Well, we can't do that at this time. The report is not before us.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
We can deal with that when we get to the public report.
Yeah.
When we get, so would you refer this to that item in the Public Works? Thank you very much. Councillor Bauma? Thank you very much. In this case, you're seconding it. All right? Everyone clear on what we're doing? I am too. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. So that completes that. We're on to item 3 now. Councillor Carty.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, thank you to Dr. McDonald for his report or review. And we do have an item in camera to look at this process, so I move to receive as information.
Receive for information. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Coleman again. Any questions? Any member council wish to comment? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. It's having trouble with the doors. That completes our delegations and disposal of the requests, so to speak, at this point in time. We'll go to adoption of minutes from previous meeting, item 5.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Blumer, that the County Grant Council minutes of March 1, March 6, and March 12, 2018 be approved.
Any questions of the presenter? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. We're over the page. Consent items to be received, 1 to 14. Consent items to be received, communications folders, and we will add to consent items to be received the letter that was added from Parkland Fuel Corporation. Now, realizing that that's added to that list, is there any item there that you wish pulled from the list to discuss? Councillor Simons.
Mayor, are we on 7B also, consent items?
7B.
I'd like to have 7B, 7 pulled, please.
7B and C, yes.
7B.
B and C. I think we're in the habit of dealing with those at the same time.
And also 7B 14.
7B.
14. Accessibility dictionary.
You want pulled?
Yes.
Is that the only one?
2. There's 2 of them.
What was the other one?
The other is 7B 7.
7. Okay. The members' council, Councillor Powell.
It's moved by myself, second by Councillor Pierce, that 7B and C consent items to be received.
With the exception of 7C 7 and 7C 14.
And Mr. Mayor, I had my hand up before Councillor Powell read the motion.
Well, I haven't finished yet.
Okay.
You're still included. Councillor Gatward, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Number 13, the Minister of Senior Affairs, 7B13. I would like that item referred to community services staff to distribute the information to the seniors groups in the county so that they can have a chance to nominate citizens within their senior community. So at this point in time,
you wish that number, that item extracted from the list. What number again is it?
13.
Pardon? B or C? Let her say.
B, like boy.
B for?
13.
13. You want that removed. Okay, thank you.
I really want it referred, but we'll do that later.
So there are 3 removed. Anyone else have an item? Councillor Pierce, please.
B1, I got a question on B1. Separate that out.
B1. Removed. All right. Anyone else? That's 4 items. Anyone else? So the rest are covered by the resolution being presented. And the resolution is moved and seconded. Everyone clear? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, we'll deal with them according to number, and the first one that comes up is 7B1. Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Yeah, so I was reading through on the expenses and stuff like that, and I had sent an email to the clerk, and we haven't really finished the conversation as yet, and it was sent back about, with the conferences of 2017. I did not attend the OSUM conference, so there's a little bit of question about that. So I just wanted to clarify that before it was published.
Of course, it should be. Clerk?
Yeah, as I say, we had already corresponded through email today,
you
so
have.
I just wanted to just have that noted in
So
there.
that will be revisited.
Yeah, thank you.
And re-presented.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, that takes care of that one. But the balance, with that note, the report should still be received with that exception. Could we, is that noted? How will we do with that? So it's noted, let's have a motion in on 7B1, be received for information with the exception of the item that Councillor Pierce. Mover and seconder. Moved and second. Councillor Coleman, all in favor, opposed, carried. Now we're down to 7B, 7B 13. Your motion, Councillor Gatwood.
Seven.
Pardon?
7B7, Your Worship.
The library.
10, 11, 12, 13. 7B13.
7B7.
Is that correct, Councillor Gatwood? Was that your item?
My goodness.
Item is 13, Mr. Mayor, 7 was first Councillor Simons.
Jesus.
7. Councillor Simons asked for this one.
Oh, I thought,
Is it that
and
way?
two of
This
them.
one. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Gatwood, you're dealing with 7 with B7.
Mr. Mayor, it was mine.
Could I have,
I
are you
pulled.
dealing with?
I am,
giving us a
Mr. Mayor, if I
motion?
may, if I may.
Please proceed.
Thank you. This is a very, becoming a very,
Yes. You read the report.
I don't know how to describe it, but it's really been, starting to be talked about a lot in Paris, about our library. Up to this point, there's been no information hardly whatsoever regarding what's going to happen to it, except the fact that people are aware, or becoming aware, that the library is going to move because it's too small and because of no parking. And people are very upset about this. They really feel that our library is very adequate. And I don't know, I would like to know, there's a few things I'd like to know. And one is, where did the consultants get the information to compare our library to the other sites? I haven't heard. I'd like to know where that comparable came from with the population that we have. Wherever I go, whatever I do, I always ask about libraries, where they're located, and 9.5 times out of 10, they're located in the downtown core of their community. I really feel that this should not be, at this point in time, the sessions that have been advertised on the Facebook, which is 3 sessions in, and you have to register for these sessions, which is very inappropriate. I don't normally do that for open session information for such a big project as this, and you can only take 40 people at the max through each session. I think that is very inadequate, and I think it should be another public forum in a larger building that we have in the county, which we generally go to have public forum meetings. And I think that should be happening in conjunction with these meetings that they're having at the library. I'm really concerned about the walking traffic that goes in the library. There's an awful lot of people that walk to the library in our community, and if it's moved out of off-site, it could be detrimental to the town. We're losing our OPP, could be losing our library, we could be losing many things, and it's just not it's just not a good thing to have happen to your downtown core. I've sat on the BA for 11 years trying to get it built up, and I really, really feel that this is a detriment to our downtown to move it out of the downtown. So I'm hoping that the library board can re-look at the library, reevaluate the space they have, see if they can regroup and try to put it in perspective, because I really have a problem. I've never once heard any person in this town say our library was inadequate. And I'm out on the streets a lot, and I talk to a lot of people, and I've never once heard it's inadequate. I'd like to know where that information came from, because I want to know where it come from. That's my question, one of the questions. So those are my concerns, and I do have a resolution, if I may. I know it should be notice of motion, but because this came up so quickly, I'm hoping that council will allow me to read the resolution and have the vote on it, whether yea or nay. So seeking a seconder.
So are you asking a question?
I'm asking
Not
if-
answered tonight?
I'm asking.
Or are you presenting a motion?
I would like to present a motion.
Is it ready? You have it ready?
I do, if I may.
As you know, the library board is governed by a appointed board.
I understand.
They have 2 members here.
I do.
It's not their responsibility at this time to respond to that. However, I would give them the opportunity if they wish to.
Certainly.
I hope this is in order, seen as in order.
One of the questions was, where did the consultant get the data?
Yes.
That was a question that should have been asked when the consultant was here and made the presentation.
Presenting,
And he would have told you.
If
Because
I,
he made a presentation, our consultant made a presentation. And it was quite lengthy, it was a separate meeting.
Okay.
if I may answer that, Mr. Mayor, and I do believe he said Vaughan, but I just wanted correction on that, because I can't imagine being compared to Vaughan. And I need correction on it, that's why I'm asking.
Please present your motion.
Okay. That the County of Brant Public Library Board be requested to hold an additional community public input session at a larger venue to allow more public input into the proposal for a new Paris library, and that this gathering be held in conjunction with the 3 book sessions being held at the Paris Library. So I'm asking for another open meeting in a bigger venue so more people can attend and more people can ask questions.
Thank you. Any questions of the presenter by a member of council? Councillor Chambers.
Well, Mr. Mayor, if I could just respond to a couple things. The motion that it's not moved and seconded, I guess it's moved, but it's out of order because we have, we're in the middle of receiving the consent items, so you'll have to be patient on your motion if that's a motion. But I think the member's a little bit confused as the process. The process is just beginning. It's not over. No decisions have been made. The focus groups are part and parcel of a public information gathering session. There will be ample opportunity for public input all along the way. This is not going to happen. A new library is not going to be built this year. It may take 6 or 7 years, and there's going to be all kinds of opportunity for input from the public, and the public input will be sought by the board as it goes through the process. I get the feeling that Councillor Simons feels that decisions have already been made. What we're doing, the decision that has been made is that we want to gather information. And I don't think you can argue with that decision. The ways that we're attempting to gather the information may be not to everyone's liking. There are focus groups, there are public meetings, there will be all kinds of different avenues. And the information that Councillor Simons has presented this evening has been heard and input has been gathered. I have to be a little bit concerned when people say everybody wants it here, or everybody wants to do this, or everybody wants, that's what we want to hear. So what I would encourage the councillors to do, if they're concerned, is give the library a call and tell them you want to take part in the focus groups, and when the public information sessions are unfolded as we go along in the next couple of years, make yourself available and make your comments be known. The library board has not made any decisions other than to seek information on where we want the library, Brant County Library, to be in the next few years. So you can, I think you can rely on the members of the library board to gather input from the community in a way that is reflective of the community's wishes as we go along.
Councillor Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Councillor Chambers, for that address. That makes me feel a tad bit better, but I did read where the 4 sites have been chosen for the library, and I know there was hesitation when I asked the question at one of the council meetings prior to this meeting about where the sites were, and but they were on the Facebook page, and 3 were Paris and 1 was on Rest Acres Road. So I don't know whether those are in writing yet, or if they're just there to pretend, or I don't know, but they were on the Facebook.
In view of, oh, sorry, you continue, Councillor Chambers.
And again, if I can respond to that, the very fact that there are 4 proposed sites should tell you that no site has been determined. Those are options that want to be looked at out of the focus groups, and if you're there, you may suggest other locations, and obviously a location is the existing location. That's what we want to have the community take part in discussing and presenting thoughts and information. And again, to say that the sites have been chosen, well, stop and think. 4 sites have been looked at. That doesn't exclude any other site, and it doesn't say that those sites are going to be where the library is, because it can't be in all 4. So a little bit of patience. Everybody wants their input to be heard, and there will be opportunity to do that. So if you have another site in mind, or the existing site is what you want, go and talk with the people and make your comments heard, and your input is welcomed by the library board. At some point, a decision will have to be made, but we're a long way from that at this point. We don't even know what we want to build, which is reflective of where it's going to be. So, just hold your horses, don't slam the door shut before we open the door. Go through the process, encourage people to make their views known, encourage the community to talk it up, and that's how we get a reflection of what the community wants and needs.
Councillor Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I don't want to make this a debate. I would like to have a positive result from this, if I could, because it is a very, very good item in our community. We're going to take 120 people out of, 14,000 people and come up with these solutions. All I'm asking is, when you do that, and after you've completed that process, could there be a public meeting to share those views on what you came up with, so that all the people in Paris can attend and hear the solutions? Not maybe solutions, but suggestions.
Again, Councillor Simons, we're not, by having the focus groups, we're not excluding further public input. You have to begin somewhere, and that is a good place to begin. If people want public meetings, we could have 10 public meetings. Maybe we should. If you think back when the process where we looked at the OPP station, that's taken 9 years maybe, or maybe 10. There's been various locations been looked at, analyzed and discussed and supported and not supported. There has been all kinds of input. And so again, be patient, let the process proceed, and the public hearings and the public meetings and the public gatherings will occur. Obviously, the approvals have to be approved at some point by the authority, and people can come to any council meeting and make their views known. I think you're going to be surprised, and and hopefully pleased by the amount of public information and public input that the library board is considering and will go through eventually.
Councillor Gatward, did you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'm pleased to hear Councillor Chambers state that there'll be ample opportunity for comment.
Well,
I guess the newspaper article got a lot of people because it didn't say that. You know, it said 3 focus groups, 40 people each, and if it had said, and yes, there'll be more public input, and open houses or whatever in the future, then people wouldn't have got so excited about this, and I think it's...
Please, would you give your opinion rather than
this is my opinion, Mr. Mayor.
Please,
because when I read the article in the paper, I wasn't impressed with what the writer had put in the paper, and now that Councillor Chambers has explained that there's going to be ample opportunity for public comments, I'm quite satisfied, so thank you.
With what's being asked. In view of the wording in the paper and the invitations and the organization of focus meetings, I firmly believe that Councillor Simon's resolution is premature. There are meetings going to be held at which the public, and I expect they will turn out, but I don't know. I don't speak for the people as you do. I do not do that. So there's an invitation here which is very genuine and very good. So I'm declaring Councillor Simon's motion at this time premature. Please keep it, and maybe at some time in the future you will may want to present it. Councillor Wheat, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The focus groups, at the conclusion of those meetings, may need to say, we need to have X number of more meetings, we need to have them here. I look across at Councillor Coleman, and he doesn't even have library service in his ward. And that's been a sore subject since I've been on council for the last 14 plus years. Secondly, library board meetings are not closed meetings. Anybody can come. It's just like this council meeting. They occur on the second Tuesday of every month.
Thank you.
Please start attending. If you're really concerned, please come.
So a motion to receive number 7.
On the floor here to deal with.
Pardon?
No, I'm told my motion.
I declare it
He declared it,
premature.
and Mr. Mayor, if I may...
In view of this, having read this in detail, so I would ask that 7 be received for information along with the others.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Yes.
if I may, I'd just like to comment on Councillor Wheat's
Yes.
suggestion. I attend BIA meetings at the same time, the same night in this council chamber, so I can't be in 2 places at one time. So that's why I don't attend library board meetings.
You're not referring to the focus meetings, though. Yes, well, that may happen. Recognize that may happen. Councillor Miller.
Just, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As far as this goes, I usually like to go to these things, not to give input. I like to hear what the public has to say. And I don't want to register because I don't want to take up somebody's spot. But I also seen that these sessions will be recorded. So I would ask, through our members maybe, will we be able to see those recordings? Like we can watch this meeting tonight, if we wish. Would we be able to watch these so we can hear what the public is focusing on?
You will certainly have access to the minutes of those meetings.
Yes.
I can't tell you whether they're going to be on TV or not, but you'll certainly have access to the minutes. It's all public information. Any meeting we have, there's public information. Never had an in-camera meeting about where and when we may build a building. That has never been done in camera.
Right. Thank you. Councillor Chambers.
And I apologize for beating this into the ground, but I just did want to make one announcement, and hopefully some members of council may wish to attend. At our John may correct me, I think it's our next library board meeting. We're having a guest speaker from, actually,
It's the May meeting.
it's the May meeting.
And he's going to be speaking on a municipality similar to this size, Niagara-on-the-Lake, where the library was located downtown, and the new library moved out to the outskirts. And he's going to speak on the problems that they faced and how they addressed them and how it has worked out.
And the pitfalls of the process and how they engage the people, et cetera. So it could be very enlightening and educational. It's a perspective on how things can happen, not to say that it will happen, but again, I bring that forward just to show, again, that the library board is looking at this process in depth and trying to get as much information as they can from everyone and to provide information to everyone so that eventually the process will be deemed successful one way or the other. But none of us may be on council when it's finally built, but the process will be educational for everyone.
Thank you for the information. 7B7, motion to receive for information, please. Councillor Pierce, Councillor Powell, all in favor? Opposed, carried. And that takes us down to 7B13. Councillor Gatler, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You have a motion prepared.
I'd
Would
just
you
like
read it,
to
please?
move that we refer 7B13 from the Minister of Seniors Affairs to Community Services staff to distribute to the Paris, Burford, and Oakland seniors groups and any other, I'm not sure if St. George has a seniors group, but if they did, all the seniors
Yes, they
groups.
do. They have seniors as well.
So that they can nominate their peers for this award.
Yes.
It's due by April 30th, so.
It seems that seniors are all over, Councillor Gatler. Every place I go, I meet them. Do you have a seconder? Seconder for Councillor Gatler's motion. Councillor Simons, discussion. Any questions of the presenter? If not, all in favor? Opposed, carried, which takes us over the page now to...
Mr. Mayor?
Pardon?
This is the next one.
14.
Who's got that one?
Councilor Simons.
Accessibility Directorate of Ontario. Employment. Councillor Gatler? Councillor Simons says so.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I just would like to know, I would like to ask the member of the Accessibility Committee through you, if this has been taken to your board and your advisory committee, and if you're going to answer this information. I think it's very important information regarding accessibility, so.
Pardon? Well, it goes automatically, does it not? Is she referring it?
Mr. Mayor, I asked Councillor Miller, because he sits on the Accessibility Committee, if they've seen this and are they going to comment on it.
This will be on their agenda automatically when it comes in.
Will it? Okay.
That's what we do with these things that come in. It goes to the appropriate committee.
Are they going to answer it? That's what I would like to know.
They will be dealing with it. So you're moving it, we refer to the Accessibility Advisory Committee, Councillor Simons, right?
I just would like to know if they've answered it, that's all. Received it and answered it. Or we can move this to them, whatever.
Well, there is a committee on accessibility. Councillor Miller is the chair.
No, I'm a member, but
Are you seconding it?
I'll respond to Councillor Simons if
Thank
he
you.
so wishes. Just, yeah, as the mayor correctly pointed out, anything from the Accessibility Directorate's office, Sheena gets a copy of.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, has the committee responded to this in a formal way? No, we have not, and we will not be meeting until past the deadline. So I don't know. I can definitely check with Sheena and see if she gives feedback, if you
thank
so
you.
wish.
Okay, thank you.
No one did the parkland.
I guess it's a no.
Corporation. No. So we're over the page now. Oh, did I put the motion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. C, rural water control. Pardon?
Those are supposed to be these, those ones.
Where are we?
Those haven't been.
I think, do we have any on C?
That's because it was these ones, not these ones.
So there's nothing out of consent items to be received, the communications. They're all received. So we're automatically down to 8, I believe. Is that correct? Everybody agree with that? The reports? First, Community Services Committee report.
It's done.
Yes, thank you. Planning Advisory Committee report.
Move on myself and second by member Powell, planning committee report. Of March 6th, be approved, knowing there are 8 items.
Discussion? Any questions of the chair?
One over there, sir.
Yes, we'll be with you in a minute. What is this?
We're all good.
That just means that item 11B on your agenda also relates to one of the recommendations, so that you have that as information.
And was an addition, an amendment to the, and that's what this is. But that's included in the report. Questions of the chair? Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Good evening.
The official plan amendment,
Yes.
we had that letter that we received from Parkland Fuel Corporation, and we just received it this evening and didn't discuss it, but they are also asking for an amendment to the official plan. And they suggested a short wording change on the back of their letter. And I'd hate to see our official plan get held up for something simple like this. I think they're concerned about their industrial use and their flammable, high-risk propane facility, and that's why they want this clause put in. And I'm wondering if staff have considered it, and perhaps the chairman knows the answer to that.
Thank you. We go to the chair with questions. If the chair wished to ask someone.
I will answer it for her.
Thank you.
They have requested and been granted official party status at the OMB hearing. Now, if you'll recall 2 weeks ago, planning meeting, I emphasized this is very important that we approve this because we're heading to the OMB
Correct.
in 2 weeks.
I remember.
And we need this to strengthen our case for a 2-week hearing at the OMB. The other letter that was attached on the addendum, you will recall, was the golf course, who came in at the last minute.
Right.
And some of the things he had to say that night were totally wrong. That was just their opinion on how it should be moved. We've been working with this, Councillor Gatward, for the last 4+ years to get to this point. And the key points I pointed out to you that had you been listening, was we finally got buy-in from 3 of our developers in that area study. And this is not the time to be turning back.
And certainly that's Councillor Wheat's opinion. I know it's not the time to be turning back. However, these people that are asking for amendments can certainly hold up things for.
And I answered that question. Sparlings have been granted official status at the OMB.
And that's where they'll
Yes.
get,
And that's where it will be dealt with.
That's good. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Miller?
Just a quick comment on Councillor Gatward's question about the propane, because that letter was in our package. And I did ask Rashika directly that night about that. She says it has been addressed, but as per what the chairman said, I mean, if they're still not happy, they still, like he said, have standing at the OMB. So as far as I know, it has been addressed.
No question. Is there a question by any member? Additional questions? None? Report is before you. Motion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Trees Conservation Committee report.
Okay, moved by myself and a second by Councillor Coleman that the Trees Conservation Committee report March 12th, 2018 be approved. Please note that there are 3 recommendations from that meeting.
Question of the chair. Questions? Councillor Chambers?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just through you to David, if I understand the recommendation, and I know there's a review in process, but the recommendation with regard to the conservation authorities, particularly the one on the Middletown line, if I don't have it right in front of me, but it's my understanding that the recommendation is that the decision of the Trees Committee be held off until such time as the Long Point Conservation Authority has looked at the application and either approved it or not approved it. Am I understanding that correctly?
Okay, I'm going to try and be a lot clearer than I was last month. The Trees Committee has no mandate in any wetlands where the Conservation Authority has, jurisdiction, that's the word I'm looking for. And if we look at number 2, that has been mapped as natural heritage wetlands, and that is under the jurisdiction of the LPRCA. Now, we cannot grant an exception to cut the trees unless they okay it, and I did talk to the planner from the LPRCA. There's 2 ways it can be done to change the mapping. One is through an EIS, which was actually our recommendation originally. The second way is to have LPRCA come out, send out their planners, and change the mapping for this applicant. But as far as the Trees Committee goes, again, we have no jurisdiction over that.
If I can just ask for a clarification, then the application, an application in a regulated area to the Trees Committee is not an application that should be made because they have no jurisdiction. Is that correct?
Yep, you just summed up what we talked about for 30 minutes at our last meeting. And if that's why we're going to number 1, what we're going to do is undertake a comprehensive review. One of the suggestions was, let's not see these before the Conservation Authorities has their, okay on it. Because what's the point of it coming to us if we can't say yay or nay? Because again, we don't have jurisdiction.
Then let me ask this. If hypothetically an application in a regulated area is approved by a conservation authority, does the Trees Committee have to approve the cutting of trees to allow the trees to be cut?
It's my understanding, yes, it does, because that's part of the provincial mandate when they passed it, when they said you have to have a Trees Committee. So we still have to approve it. And when we do approve it, we send Clayton in, he gives us feedback and, well, okay, let's try and protect this or do that. And so he might have a few suggestions as well.
But what you've just done is contradict yourself. If the Conservation Authority approves it and the application, you just said prior that the Trees Committee has no jurisdiction. So they can neither approve or disapprove after the Conservation Authority if it's in a regulated area. And then you said that, yes, the Trees Committee has to approve it before the trees are cut. So there's a contradiction there. Which way is it?
Well, like I say, as far as I know, well, no, it is our mandate to approve it right now under our current terms of reference. But our terms of reference also say we don't have jurisdiction over that. But the way things stand now, and again, that's why we're asking staff to undertake a comprehensive review, because a lot of the things that we can or cannot do conflict with our official plan. We believe they're conflicting with certain new provincial regulations that come out, and we're also conflicting with Conservation Authority jurisdiction. So there's a few issues we need to deal with. But as far as number 2 goes, we can't approve that until Long Point has approved it.
If I could, and again, this is important, and I'll explain why in a minute. The way I understand it is that if someone wants to cut trees in a regulated area, they have to have the authority's approval, the Conservation Authority's approval, and they have to have the Trees Committee approval.
And that's what he just
If the Trees Committee says no, even though the Long Point or the Conservation Authority says yes, the trees cannot be cut. If the Conservation Authority says no, and the Trees Committee says yes, the trees cannot be cut. So each has the authority to regulate, and each has the authority to either approve or disapprove, and for the trees to be cut, both have to approve it. That's the way I understand the process. So the recommendation that the Trees Committee, and this is where I'm going to get into why I don't agree with it, of the Trees Committee is that we're going to wait until we find out what Long Point does, and if they approve it, then we'll deal with it. And this is what could happen, and this is why I don't agree with that recommendation. To get the authority, the Conservation Authority's approval, that may be an expensive thing.
Yes.
They may have to have an environmental impact study. They may have to go through a lot of steps and hoops, and the application cost will be considerable compared to the Trees Committee application. So you could have, what you're setting up is a situation where a farmer or a landowner goes through all kinds of hoops at the Conservation Authority and ultimately gets approval after spending a couple $1,000s, hypothetically. Then it comes to the Trees Committee and they say no. Wouldn't it make more sense to have the Trees Committee say no before the property owner has to go through all the hoops and expense of getting the Conservation Authority approval? And that's why I don't agree with that recommendation, because you're actually setting up an expensive proposition if eventually you're going to refuse the application. So why not look at the application on the merits of the Trees Committee, whether or not they're going to approve it. And if they're not going to approve it, then don't send the guy after the Conservation Authority, spend a couple $1,000 trying to get their approval if you're not going to approve it. So I'm not going to support that recommendation because I think it can be an expensive proposition in some situations. Thankfully, most applications are not in regulated areas. But if they are in a regulated area, then as far as I'm concerned, the Trees Committee can make their decision, Long Point can make their decision, and if both say yes, then you're off to the races.
I'll just reiterate what I said before. The Trees Conservation Committee has, in their terms of reference, cannot allow for cutting in Conservation Authority jurisdictions unless they approve it first. And I just want to point out too, hypothetically, if the Conservation Authority approved it, then it comes to the Trees Committee and the Tree Committee turns it down.
That was supposed
council can overturn that decision, because all our decisions come to council. So that's where council members can have an input.
It would, if I might, just to conclude, it would be far more, I think, a correct process to approve conditional upon the Conservation Authority's approval. And then you can do your thing, and it's still conditional upon the approval of the Conservation Authority. And you don't have to wait and make a decision after. You make your decision based on the merits, the criteria of the Trees Committee, conditional upon the Conservation Authority approval. If the Conservation Authority doesn't approve it, then the approval of the Trees Committee falls away. So that's how I think the recommendation should be phrased, conditional upon, rather than waiting until. So I would request that that recommendation be pulled so I can vote against it.
Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, we had considerable discussion about this, and the fact of the matter is that if the Conservation Authority comes back and says, this is in a provincially significant wetland, there's this, there's that, and we don't approve of any cutting in this area, the tree committee is not going to say, well, too bad, we're going to approve it anyway.
Yes.
Or vice versa. Or vice versa. And I think that Councillor Chambers is just confusing the matter, in my opinion. I think that the staff got involved because this became an issue when the tree committee did not get input from the GRCA first. And that's why staff got involved and said, well, you need an EIS on this one and this one and this one. And all of a sudden the tree committee said, well, wait a minute here. How come this process is changing? So we're working on sorting this out. But what is the point of us as a tree committee approving something and saying, pending Conservation Authority approval, when we know that the Conservation Authority's going to probably turn it down? They have to apply. They have to apply to the Conservation Authority. They have to pay the fees, no matter whether they get approved or not. They have to apply to the tree committee, no matter whether they get approved or not. There's a cost to each of those applications. The GRCA charges for most things they do for residents and municipalities. Am I not correct on that, Mr. Mayor?
Well, all we've ever asked is that the Conservation Authority deal with the matter so that when we have a hearing, we know what they're saying.
Exactly.
But that doesn't happen always.
No, and so that's what we're asking for, is that we have clear permission from whichever authority it is before we deal with an application. And if they give their permission, it's very doubtful that Clayton or our tree committee would turn around and turn it down.
No, you can't predetermine the outcome of decisions at hearings. You can't do that.
No, you can't.
You can't predetermine, as we've seen in many cases. Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could, I must admit, Councillor Gatward just confused me because she's saying that you can't assume, and yet she assumed about 4 times within her comments. But at any rate, I thank you, Councillor Chambers, because you did straighten it out in my eyes, because I totally appreciate where you're coming from. If I'm a farmer, let's say, and I'm going to cut down trees in a regulated area, I need to understand, first of all, if the Trees Committee is going to support it, conditionally, knowing full well it has to go to the LPRCA for their approval, but I understand where he's coming from. If the Trees Committee is not going to support it, why would I spend my money to even go there to see if they're going to approve it or not? So I totally understand where he's coming from, and I appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
Any other speakers? Did you want to respond?
Well, just to be clear procedurally, we'll be voting on 1 and 3 first, and then...
Do we have a motion on the report, and not one of the recommendations? Councillor Chambers, did you move any a recommendation regarding one of them? I thought you were removing one from the report.
Recommendation number 2, I would like removed, so I can either amend it or not support it, to be voted on separately from the other 2.
Well, he just wants it to be considered separately, so we don't need a motion.
2?
Yep, number 2.
Agreed. We're doing with recommendations number 1 and 3 of the Trees Conservation Committee report at this time. And we have a motion to approve them. Anyone wish to speak? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Recommendation number 2.
Speaking to recommendation number 2, Mr. Mayor, I'm not supporting it because I don't believe that it does have to be deferred pending. I believe that it can be dealt with conditionally upon what transpires at Long Point.
Anyone else wish to speak? Do you wish to comment?
Part of what Long Point will do is an EIS. Through that EIS, Environmental Impact Study, there's some other issues that were brought up from the report. Clayton brought them up. And don't forget, in our official plan, any natural heritage feature and/or wetlands also require an EIS. Having said that, I would prefer to wait and see what Long Point says about it, because we can't just give flat-out approval from what I've seen, even conditional. I'd rather wait and see, like I say, how Long Point addresses it, and most probably they will address it through an EIS. So I think,
What is causing a delay from Long Point Conservation?
well, that I couldn't tell you, Mr. Mayor.
But
That, I don't know.
Councillor Chambers.
What may be causing the delay at Long Point is there may not be an application pending. I'm not sure whether the property owner has made an application for that. If they have, then usually the application is dealt with by the authority. And just for everyone's information, if the application is deemed to be approved, that is a staff function. The board does not make the decision. It is made by staff. If staff is recommending not to be approved, then what happens then is it goes before a hearing board, which is the same as the authority, and the hearing board makes a recommendation to the authority, and then the authority makes the final decision.
Yes.
So I'm not going to say that an EIS is going to be required, because that depends on the application. If the area is not deemed to be interfering with the wetland, then the application will be approved.
If it's not.
There may be an approval conditional upon certain things being done, or there may be staff recommending to be not approved, and that'll go to the hearing board, which will make the recommendation to the authority. So I don't want to give the impression that Long Point will require an EIS, because that's not known. It'll be determined once the site is investigated, but the first step would be, and before anything can be done, it is in a regulated area, and an application to Long Point will have to be made.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Any other questions? If not, the motion is to approve it. Vote, all in favor?
No, it's to,
Opposed?
Mr. Mayor.
Oh, you county.
1 second.
Pardon?
You said the motion was to approve it. That's not Correct, I don't believe.
Pardon?
The number 2 is to...
We're dealing with number 2, and the motion cover.
To approve the recommendation.
Councillor Gatwards, do you wish to speak?
I believe number 2 was to defer until we hear from the Long Point.
Yes, correct.
That is
But-
approval.
But you, yeah, But you stated it was to approve. Approve it.
Approve the recommendation.
Yeah.
Do you wish to revote?
I just...
Yes, yes, please. The motion is to approve recommendation number 2 as written. Yeah, and I think we need a revote because I don't know if everybody was...
Could, all in favor of the recommendation to approve number 2? Oppose?
Motion is carried.
Slightly. Corporate Development Committee report.
Thank you, Your Worship. It is moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Boma that the 6 recommendations for the Corporate Development Committee meeting of March 12, 2018 be approved.
Questions of the chair? No questions? All in favor? Oppose? Carried. Thank you. Public Works Committee report. And do we have something to deal with this as well?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councilor Miller, that the Public Works report from March 13, 2018 be approved, noting there are 13 recommendations. Number 11, Mr. Mayor, I will pull it and ask and to make a friendly amendment to that one. That is referring back to the delegation this evening.
So that's out of the report, and we're dealing with all the other recommendations at this time. Questions of the chair? There are none. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We are dealing with number 11 now.
Mr. Mayor, I would move that everything stayed the same, be referred to downtown master plan process and to refer back to Public Works staff for an input into this, in the technical merits.
Technical merits.
Seeking a seconder.
Councillor Pierce, thank you. Discussion. Any speakers? Did you wish to?
I was just going to comment to Your Worship, if I could. I know Ann made very good points, and it's an important safety issue and so on and so forth, but the master plan process, it's my understanding that it's going to be moving along much quicker than 5, 6, 7 years, I think. And I would hope, and I would think it's the intention of this resolution, that you maybe even want to put a time limit on it, that it be referred there for the technical input, and that there be a report back within a time frame that you might want.
Excellent.
And that way we could probably get the best of both worlds here. And that.
Thank you.
That's what the motion is speaking to, is that especially we have to have the technical merits.
Sure.
Just when we had the speaker up there, I'm thinking, and I like the motion because, and there might be other suggestions that come out of that. And just throwing them out there, maybe we reduce one of the parking spots so it gives more visibility. Maybe we eliminate left-hand parking off Mechanic Street. So that's I support the motion.
Thank you for your comment. So the recommendation is, got a motion moved by, second by.
Yep, the motion's moved by Councillor Coleman, seconded by Councillor Pierce, that recommendation 11 of the Public Works Committee report be approved with an amendment to add that the matter also be referred back to Public Works staff for input and information on the technical merits of this proposal.
Input and information. Excellent. Good. Okay, thank you. Everyone clear? Any further questions? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. And that completes Public Works Committee report.
Thank you, Madam.
And maybe that completes the report. Staff reports, downtown master plans, Burford and St. George. Mr. Bradley will present. Pardon?
Mr. Mayor, the report is fairly straightforward. The resolution is longer than the report, but it's moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Bauma, the recommendation as it appears on the agenda.
Thank you. Questions of the presenter by members of council? Anyone? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Which takes us to 10. Councilor.
Sorry, if I could just remind everybody that the one for St. George is tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night. Will that be a late meeting?
No.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So, information reports, none listed. Communications, Brant County Health Unit, larviciding catch basins.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Powell, that the Brant County Health Unit larviciding of catch basins, West Nile virus, be approved, as written.
Questions? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number 11B was dealt with, I believe, within the planning report. That's off the list, so we don't need to do that again. Number 12, questions. Any questions by members of council and perhaps answers? If not, will resolution 1 read Ministry of Community Services and Correctional Services consultation on proposed fire regulations. And it's expressing support of the Association of Municipalities of Ontario's position and comments on the proposed regulations. Copy to go forward. Councillor Ballmer, please.
Yeah, everyone's had an opportunity to read it. It's moved by myself, seconded by Member Simons, and you have it before you as written. If I could comment, Your Worship. Just very basically, I think it's a grand thing that the province is moving forward on keeping people safer and everything else. However, there is a cost involved with that, and hats off to our current and previous fire administration that a lot of that training and everything else has been put into place. And yet, it's very easy for the province, since we are creatures of the province, to change regulations, making things more difficult for us, but that also increases costs significantly. And what I love about this resolution from AMO is that it takes that into account, and it's asking the provincial government to then also fund those changes, because rather than making it onerous on the taxpayers here.
Any further questions? Any questions? None? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And another extremely important item for the County of Brant, resolution re hospital services in Brant.
Yeah, it's covering everything.
It's very verbose. It's moved by myself.
Read it all.
Seconded by Member Simons and Your Worship, if I could comment on this one. It struck me as odd that less work has been done on this. And I know it's an election year. It's everyone, everyone is talking about this, and yet at the same point, I think there's no better time. We've proven ourselves at this council and at the City of Brantford Council and our work with Six Nations that we are capable of working well together.
Yes.
And I think the key in order to move forward with any type of hospital construction long-term is to get the stakeholders together at the table. And so when I saw that the City of Brantford had passed a resolution trying to do that, and I thought it would behoove us as County Council to do something similar here so that we can be on the same page. And so that's where this comes from.
I phoned to take the same action because I strongly believe in it, that we need to progress in some way or other as we go along. Questions of the presenter? If not, you've read it, everybody's read it. All in favor, opposed, carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're over the page. I guess we're over the pages. Yes, it is nice. Yeah, I really wondered why we didn't get a copy of it at the time, but that's all right. That's to, so that was number 13B, and we're to number 14 now. Other business by members of council. Councilor Miller.
Just in regard to the working group on the new hospital, actually would have voted against that. And not that I'm against the new hospital, it's just that it says there on our page 204, the last line, the second last line says, and perform a community needs assessment. And to me, I would do it one step at a time. And that's the first thing I would do. I would work on a community needs assessment. See what the community needs, and then go from there. I think what this is doing is, we need a new hospital, let's justify it. So I wanted to say that before we voted on the last motion, but I didn't get that chance.
So what are we dealing with?
Nothing. Just a comment, that's all.
Just a comment. Yes, other business. Any other item? Councillor Powell, please.
Just a comment on the hospital. Kitchener News last night featured Cambridge Memorial Hospital.
Yes, you saw that.
It's been 4 years.
Beautiful.
Process.
Beautiful.
It'll be done in May, then it'll take 8 weeks to sort out how the whole thing works. So, when you talk about hospitals, it is a long time to get approved, to get financed, to get it put forward, so you have to be aware of it.
Thank you, Councillor Cardy.
Along the hospital lines, I'm sure everyone's aware that Windsor has been announced that they're getting a new hospital to the tune of a few $1 billion, and then when they made the presentation, the minister said, oh, and by the way, we're going to close your other 2 hospitals that are here. And they weren't made aware of that until the point happened, and all of a sudden they went, well, what are you talking about?
So what's the balance? What's the balance figure out of that, closing and opening? We need to know that. Thank you. Anyone else? So we're ready to go in camera. Oh, Councillor Gatward, excuse me. I should look to my left.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion that we just passed, it suggests that we have representatives from Brant, and I guess I'm wondering if we're going to appoint our representatives this evening or at the next council meeting.
Well, we don't know that there's going to be a committee appointed, but that decision hasn't been made. First of all, I think if we're going to have a committee formed, we would need some kind of communication with the Ministry of Health so that it is a legally recognized committee when it's formed. Even though it's formed by the 2 councils, you would want it to have a connection, and I don't know what their response. The first thing, and the clerk can correct me, that we will send this forward and say, and I don't know where the city's movement to do that stands, whether they've had answer back from the ministry or not, but we would need to present it in unison, probably.
Well, as part of the group, we would.
Yes.
But they have appointed
Yes,
their
and they
members.
may have strict guidelines on those. I have no idea at this point in time.
Yeah, they've appointed their members already, according to,
If it's something, information we find out, we'll be back to council for the necessary action.
it can come back to another meeting.
Back door? Oh, I know, I go in the front door.
No, front door.
Thank you.
Open and transparent.
Yes, thank you. Well said. Unless, yes, Councillor Weed, I should look to the right as well.
Periodically, I think that camera should be positioned in other portions of this room so that people at home can see the look on Councillor Coleman's face occasionally rather than mine, because sometimes his is funnier than mine, I'm sure. And people at home are being denied the reaction.
Denied.
And they're focusing on Bala and I don't think that's fair to Councillor Coleman.
Any response?
Well, they're much better looking than I am, Mr. Mayor, so, and they both have a full head of hair, so we'll just leave it at that, so.
You've got a couple of good looks tonight, Brian. And people are denying. Staff doesn't even get to see what I see.
Mr. Cahoon's seeing it.
I would point out that when when we've completed the item, other business, we'll progress along to an in-camera session, but it's at your call, not mine. Whenever you wish. Did you wish to speak, Vince?
No, I'm going to make a presentation about we go on camera.
Yes, I think we're ready.
But as far as the camera goes, I've heard a lot of, I would say compliments about how shiny it is on this side of the table. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Coleman, that the County of Brant Council convene in camera to discuss a proposed acquisition, disposition of land by the municipality, personal matter about an identifiable individual, potential acquisition of land, potential disposition of land, a proposed disposition of lands, commercial financial information supplied confidence to the municipality, a proposed disposition of land by the municipality, and a personal matter about an identifiable individual.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We will be in camera.
Are we back on TV?
We're back on, yes.
First reading of bylaws. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
And second reading of bylaws. It's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Coleman, that the following bylaws be read a second time and all clauses and preambles be adopted. Bylaw number 29-18 through to bylaw number 42-18.
Second reading of bylaws. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Any member have an item in one of the bylaws that they wish to raise, question, or comment on before we proceed to third? None? Councillor Gatler, please.
Thank you. It's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Coleman, that the following bylaws be now read a third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Bylaw number 29-16 through to 29-18 through to 42-18 to confirm the proceedings of council.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. That's third time reading of bylaws. Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could, I just wanted to just kind of backtrack to a comment that Councilor Chambers said about the Maple Leafs winning the cup. Just a little trivia, if I could, that this year in the NHL, the Detroit Red Wings and Chicago Blackhawks did not make the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Why?
The last time that Chicago and Detroit did not make the playoffs was 49 years ago when the Toronto Maple Leafs were the Stanley Cup defending champions.
Really? 49.
He did not say they were going to win. He said they were going to be playing. That's right.
Before we leave, do you need this read in public?
I think that's quality
Let's go, man.
I